Australia is once again a penal colony. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says US. Grab your stein of coffee because we're going to talk about a Zero Hedge article which is discussing, well, the Lbry Works court action to try and free us from this penal colony. We now can't leave Australia, guys. It is returned to its traditional role as a penal colony. Cheers, everyone. We're stuck on this big island. Isn't it fantastic? Now, here's the thing. There'll be a lot of people that'll be, oh, outrage, it's horrible. You know, everyone I talk to is against this. But you've got to understand the danger with social media is that you may just be being fed information from sources that the algorithm thinks you're interested in. So you may just be exposed to people with your worldview or your own particular bias or perspective. And, well, judging by the public opinion of a recent poll, maybe a lot of people are happy to be locked up in Australia. We have this reputation of being a carefree, larrikin country. I would argue against that these days. I think we've got a whole lot of Karens, a whole lot of dibber-dobbers. The number of people that rang up and reported people for having guests over, breaking lockdown requirements. It just shows you just try and get away with something. You know, how many of your neighbours will dob you in, guys? That's really what it's feeling like in Australia. Now it's getting worse. Well, maybe that's just my perspective. What do you reckon? I'll have a shot of coffee before we have a look at this poll results. And I know it may be questionable if you trust it or not, but the problem is it's going to be used to sway the public. There'll be a lot of people that will just go along with the crowd. I mean, let me know in the comments. Are you happy that you can't leave Australia because you're fearful of people leaving, bringing back these illnesses? So this is from the Lbry Institute. Border closures for Australians during the pandemic. Currently, Australians are not permitted to leave the country without applying for a special exemption. Which one of the following best describes your view? So, hardly any don't know. 18% say Australians should be free to leave. 40% say Australians who have been vaccinated should be free to leave. And 41%, only Australians granted special exemptions should be allowed to leave. So the highest proportion of Australians, 41%, want to keep you locked in this country. There you go. It's only us and North Korea, guys. There we go. See, we've got something in common. But they beat us with their nuclear technology. Isn't it fantastic, everyone? What have we all become accustomed to? Imagine if you had have mentioned this in, 2 years ago. You said, the government will stop everyone from leaving the country. How outraged people would be. People would think you're a lunatic. People would think you were a lunatic. Have a look. 40% want vaccination to be a requirement to leave the country. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got no issue with vaccination. I'm hesitant because of the media with this particular illness, but that's probably because there's absolutely... If it weren't for the media, I would have no idea. Living in Brisbane, we've got a pandemic. I would have absolutely no idea. Just going about my day-to-day business. I live in the Asian quarter of the city, so people wearing masks, it's a normal thing. It's a cultural thing. I've seen it going about shopping. It's like when I went to Hong Kong, and then after at university we moved in this area. It feels like that. Even the dodgy shop fit outs feel like that too. I love it. So cheap. You got to save money. Got to save money. Prepare for the future. But still, 40% of Australians think it should be a requirement to leave this penal colony. We don't have the same liberty focus here as the States, guys. We don't have that culture here in Australia. The only rebellion against authority here in Australia was against the impositions on minors. So, let's have a look at this article. Australian court upholds draconian ban on international travel. In what is a landmark court ruling in Australia, a country that has raised the drawbridge by preventing citizens from leaving and foreigners from arriving, a judge has upheld the government's travel ban that prevents most Australians from leaving the country so they don't bring COVID-19 back with them. The government has credited the strategy with the country's success in limiting COVID-19 infections. A recent outbreak in Melbourne has led to a week-long lockdown for the country's second largest city and the surrounding Victorian state, which might be extended as new cases, many of which were traced to a particular infectious strain out of India, are identified. And we'll talk about that on my other channel. It looks like they're going to extend it. I mean, you've got to feel sorry for the Victorians, guys. Over 100 days in lockdown. Here we've got 3 days in Brisbane. That's what we had. You barely noticed it. You know, as the AP reports, Australia is the only developed democracy that has prevented its citizens and permanent residents from leaving the country, except in exceptional circumstances where they can demonstrate a compelling reason. Well, I know on my other channel people have mentioned, they've reached out to me too, they're doing whatever they can to get out of the country. Some guys, they've got an Eastern European wife, we're going to Poland, we're going to Hungary, we're getting out of here. Liberty Works, the libertarian group that brought the court challenge, argued before the full bench of the federal court in early May that Health Minister Greg Hunt didn't have the power to legally enforce the travel ban, which has prevented thousands of Australians from attending weddings and funerals, caring for dying relatives, and meeting newborn children. Furthermore, Liberty Works lawyer Jason Potts argued that Australians have had a right to leave their country under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. But the panel of 3 judges ruled that Potts' submission was based on the erroneous premise that the right is absolute. Just dwell on that for a moment. The erroneous premise that the right is absolute. So then what's the point of a right? The judges ruled that Potts' interpretation of the law undermines Parliament's clear intentions when lawmakers created the emergency powers in the Biosecurities Act in 2015. See, and this is something that I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even looking at it when it was coming out. And I imagine a majority of Australians weren't either. I'm sure there would have been people who were interested in it. And I bet you Andrew would have been looking at it. I wouldn't be shocked. But this is the thing, where these things can just pass through Parliament and they can have ramifications in the future that we don't realise. Look at the cash ban. They were trying to get the $10,000 spending limit through. Fortunately, it didn't get through. But what about the Biosecurity Acts? Could you imagine trying to get a public campaign against that? You'd have everyone, all the farmers would be up in arms. It'd be impossible. And now, it's being used to remove our ability to leave the country. It may be accepted that the travel restrictions are harsh. It may also be accepted that they intrude upon individual rights, the judges said in the ruling. But Parliament was aware of that. There you go. See, Liberty Works President Andrew Cooper is reportedly considering an appeal to the High Court. And I've interviewed Andrew on my Heise Says Australian channel. I've met him. We ran against each other in a seat here. That's where I met him. He's a nice bloke. And I don't blame him. So, we're very disappointed in the judgment today. We continue to believe that the outbound border closure is defective in law and perhaps more importantly unjust on human rights grounds. We must remind ourselves also that often things that are legal are not necessarily just, said Andrew in an email. While Europe and most of the world open up their borders, only North Korea and Australia stubbornly continue with strict controls over their citizens' ability to leave the country, he added. And remember, guys, remember that poll. The majority of people are in support of it. Critics of the emergency order claim that it is hardest on the 30% of Australians who were born overseas. However, public opinion polling shows Australians mostly support the restrictions, since they have apparently helped the country keep its COVID-19 cases and deaths at levels well below their peers in Europe and North America. So, there you go, everyone. Australia returns, or Well, our status as a penal colony that we can't leave has been confirmed by 3 judges. We'll have to see if Lbry Works takes it to the High Court. I mean, there's costs involved in all of this, guys. And the public, I don't think the public would be on his side. It wouldn't. So, what's the solution? Well, the question is the closure of our border a mitigating factor in the mortality? Can it be demonstrable? If the lockdowns aren't demonstrable as can't be demonstrated as having a mitigating fact on the morbidity of people due to this illness, can these border closures? Or I think the issue is the issue bringing people in and out, or is the issue quarantining them in hotels in the middle of cities? You know, what about mining camps, guys? Spend a couple of weeks out there, isolated. Why not? Would you happily do that? If that was the price you had to pay to travel overseas, okay, you can go overseas, no problem. But you need to spend 2 weeks on a mining camp. Don't worry, it's bulk buy food. It'll be dirt cheap. Would you do it? What do you reckon? Would that be a sacrifice you'd be willing to make to travel overseas? Let us know in the comments below, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this topic in the comments down below. If you're a fan of the channel and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us by signing up for Self-Wealth or Stake, using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Aussie Broadband, buying our merch from Heise Says, using Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or supporting us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.